everyone, and welcome to Amico Light's first product launch of 2021. I'm your host, Erin Mullins. I'm the Sales and Marketing Coordinator here at Amico Lights, and we are so excited to have you here today to take you through our newest lineup of MRI lighting solutions.
Thank you, Erin, for the introduction, and thank everybody for joining us for today's webinar. Hope everyone is keeping safe out there during these times. Obviously, we would love to have been there in front of you live to do these presentations. But given the situation and the circumstances, we are very excited to present our virtual webinar on our MRI solutions. Before we get started, though, I would like to share a bit of background on how we actually got here today. And we've heard from a lot of you that it's vital and important to have a manufacturer that can really provide a single source solution for all different types of medical products. And a lot of you had asked, are we going to come out with an MRI fixture? When is it going to be coming out? So we listened to you guys, and now that we've partnered with a company called PDC Facilities. PDC is an MRI leading manufacturer that provides MRI solutions such as RF shielding, privacy screens, and of course, lighting. MRI lighting fixtures, as you probably know, is not as simple as your general troffer. There's a lot of R&D and testing that goes into actually producing, manufacturing MRI compatible products. We want to ensure, obviously, that the lighting does not create any type of artifacts or imaging issues in that room. So PDC has that proven MRI product and technology, and Amico has the proven name and strength and its relationships. And so to expand the market, Amico and PDC have now partnered together to help you guys penetrate a lucrative market for this year. So with that said, let's review how lucrative this market can really be. In 2018, they were estimated that the MRI market was approximately $1.46 billion. In 2019, it jumped to approximately 1.4 billion. And then in 2020, it jumped to approximately 1.262 billion. For this calendar year, we estimate that the market size will be worth about $1.7 billion. And some estimates show a staggering growth in 2024 as high as $7.2 billion. Keep in mind, though, that this encompasses all MRI products, which would factor in construction costs, equipment costs, lighting costs, etc. But given this is a lighting-specific presentation, let's dive into what actually is available for what we consider the MRI lighting segment. The following figures here represent approximately 1,260 projects for the 2021 calendar year, of which $8.8 million worth of business will require some form of white LED lighting. So that's pretty big, I would say, for the 2021 calendar year. Of that, we have approximately 540 projects, which represents approximately $27 million. That'll need some form of an enhanced patient experience. And I'm going to touch on that a bit later on what that actually means. From there, we're going to jump in and we'll see that approximately 720 projects will require some form of an image panel that has a very unique design, and that's about $5.7 million, give or take, okay? And then finally, 216 projects will have a full, unique, enhanced patient experience. And again, I'll go through that later on what that unique patient experience represents, but that's about $17.2 million, so it's good size. So what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? Essentially, in 2021, we estimate that approximately $58.8 million worth of business is out for grabs. You'll see that represents a significant amount of business in the calendar year, which we would like to now penetrate. Okay, this gives you guys the advantage of writing your jobs with your specifiers and your designers geared towards these new and exciting products that Amico and PDC have to offer. So I'd like to now share a quick behind the scenes view on the process of our development here at Amico and the process of our partnership with PDC. So please enjoy the quick video. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I feel like really energized after seeing something like that. But one of the common themes you'll hear at Amico Lights, and again, being a specialized medical lighting manufacturer, is that we recognize that we want to provide two guiding principles here. The first is being able to provide solutions that are functional, but also that provide solutions that are that meet the challenges of clinicians on a daily basis. We'll get a bit more into that as well further on in the presentation. But for now, I want to take you guys through the individual products that we'll be offering to you guys. First is our 2x2 image panel. It comes in three pieces. You'll have your image panel here, your riser kit, and then your actual LED. These come in various shapes and sizes. You can use any image panel that you like, or you can use a custom image panel, and they fit into your traditional 2x2 or 2x4 grid pattern. And it's pretty unique in that, again, if you have a custom design, you can definitely use that. Okay. They come in various grid patterns as well. So they'll come in a 2x2, a 2x4, a 6x6, 10x10, virtually any grid pattern that you'd like to see. We can definitely meet that design requirement. Now, the next item here is our, what I call our 270 wall panel. I personally have never been or have never seen a room that's pretty cool and unique as this. This really provides an immersive composition that creates a realistic perspective for patients where the image flows up the wall and then right across the ceiling. So I really feel that this could be a game changer that really differentiates you guys from the rest of the competition out there, right? This cool design, in my opinion, really changes the aesthetics and that environment to a warm and inviting environment for a patient versus your traditional institutional settings that we've been accustomed to. We also offer the custom shapes and sizes. You'll see right here, we have a nice circular shape. You can get an oval shape, you can get a clip shape, you can get a hexagon shape, you can get any shape for that matter that you'd like, all right? Again, any design challenge is never a question that we don't want to answer. But what makes this one different versus all the other manufacturers that offer image tiles? Well, first, we provide custom troffers that are cut to size so that your contractor doesn't need to do any on-site sizing or recutting to fit into the tiles. Secondly, we provide the actual custom sized tile that fits directly into the custom sized troffer. We'll provide a template to your contractor so they can do that in field and provide the rough-in. And then really it's just like a plug and play type of installation where you have your custom troffers and your custom tiles and you just simply drop it into the ceiling. Okay, so hopefully you'll see how that unique advantage will not only help save on the time of a project, but as well as installation costs. Next would be our Cove lighting series. The Cove lighting comes in your standard lengths and comes in both a white and RGB option. You see here, very nice Cove lighting, okay? It can be installed in your traditional acoustic or drywall ceiling. And what this cool cove lighting, or what we want to call accent lighting, creates is that it draws the patient's attention away from the MRI bore. If for those of you who do not know what an MRI bore is, it's right here. All right, I didn't know, so here you go. The cove lighting comes again in both a curved and linear option. This is your nice linear option right here that you can have. And on top of that, we can actually provide a custom shape and length and sizes shown by this nice, cool racetrack theme here, right? It's a really cool type of design that you can work with instead of just having your traditional can lights or down lights and then white walls. Having this accent really does make a difference in the overall patient experience. Next, we have our illuminated wall fixtures. These come in your traditional 2 foot by 8 foot or 4 foot by 8 foot standard sizes. We do offer a 2 foot by 8 foot slim, which has a recessed option of approximately 2 inches. Otherwise, it will come in a 5-inch depth, all right? They have RGB backlit and white backlit options. And you can choose your art graphic from our standard offerings, or again, you can use a custom design based on the design needs of that project. All of these solutions can be controlled by individual controls, or you can use the Amico PDC unique touchpad system that we can touch upon later on. Next, we're going to move on to our downlight series. So this is the DL6 downlight. The DL6 downlight is a downlight that pretty much would match up to any other manufacturers. It comes in color temperatures of 3,000, 3,500, and 4,000, delivered lumen output of approximately 2,900. But what's different about this one versus the rest, again, what differentiates you from everybody else, is that this one is approximately 3.9 inches in depth, versus the other manufacturers are anywhere between 5 to 6. So right there, there's a big advantage when it comes to a nice, shallower type of form factor. The next is the LP6 downlight. The LP6 downlight offers only 3,500 and 4,000 color temperatures. Both have the 0 to 10 volt dimming capabilities. This one has a slightly lower lumen output between 1,400 and 1,800, depending on the color temperature that you choose. But this one is actually a bit more shallower than the the DL6 downlight. So this one measures 3 inches. So as we know, projects are getting tighter and tighter and tighter in that plenum space. So being able to offer a downlight that addresses that challenge provides a distinct advantage that you have against your competition. Next, what I'm going to call a game changer is called the LPD. And I call it a game changer because I have not seen another manufacturer offer something like this within the MRI environment. This is the LPD directional downlight. And as you know, shadowing is a major concern in the healthcare space. So if the clinician or technician is trying to do an IV insertion for sedation or any type of examination on that board table, shadowing becomes a major issue. So you'll see here, you can use the 2 directional downlights that provide good lumen output and lighting for the patient, and then combining it with the remaining standard downlights that you would have in that room, all right? So again, being a medical lighting manufacturer, we do understand those challenges, and this is how we address them, all right? So this is your big advantage that you can offer on various projects. Finally, we have the A21 retrofit LED lamp. This is a quick yet efficient solution that you can offer to your facilities or your clients that don't have a budget for a full-scale renovation project, and they want to upgrade their old incandescent lamps to newer LED technology. If you didn't know, incandescent lamps in the MRI space typically burn out between 3 to 6 months, and if not replaced right away, could potentially create imaging or artifact issues, which then results into reimaging, or then results into inefficiencies. The LED retrofit lamp can be installed in 3 simple steps. You simply just take out the old lamp, install the Amico PDC power supply. From there, you just need to confirm your polarity, positive or negative, and then just take out the old, put in the new, and voila, you've upgraded to LED technology. We found that it's approximately $310 in average cost savings over the life of the LED lamp. Now, hopefully, after everything I've just talked about and shown you guys see the common theme here is we want to ensure that we're providing the quality solutions to you guys as well as delivering products that will make the lives easier for your contractors, designers, and customers. So that being said, I'm going to hand the floor back over to Aaron. I appreciate you guys' time, and I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully soon enough. So Aaron, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Scott. So Scott talked about the MRI market and our new lineup of Enhanced Patient Experience Suites, or EPE as we call it. But what really is the Enhanced Patient Experience? Essentially, Enhanced Patient Experience, or EPE, is anything that reduces anxiety and fear in patients and improves overall patient satisfaction. But why is this important in the MRI space? Well, 42% of MRI patients have anxiety over their scan. Of that figure, 13% have intense anxiety and 6% require sedation and anesthesia. This costs the hospital a lot of money and a lot of time. With MRI and radiology being the second largest profit center in the hospital, it's crucial for the hospital to increase their patient throughput. The best way to do this is by creating a relaxing and stress-free environment for the patient that aids as a visual distraction. So when the patient walks into the MR suite, they become pleasantly surprised by the suite, and it immediately breaks that fight or flight response, and the patient is snapped out of their worry and anxiety over their scan and diagnosis and begins focusing on their immediate surroundings. The lights, the sounds, the nature imagery. This elicits positive emotions in the patients, and they're able to relax and complete their scan more quickly and exit happier. But this environment doesn't just increase patient satisfaction. This also improves staff satisfaction and allows the hospital system to boost their productivity, increase physician referrals, improve workflow, and generate more profit. So to get a better understanding of the ROI of an EPE suite, a study was conducted by a top 10 nonprofit health system with over 500 care sites to determine the payback period of an EPE suite. The objective was to determine the financial performance of an MRI suite with and without the EPE, and whether there was a financial benefit associated to the EPE and what the ROI would be. Within a 12-month period, we saw outpatient anesthesia dropped 57%. Inpatient anesthesia dropped from 9.5% to 2.5%, with escape rates 85% lower. As a result, revenue from increased scans was $825,000 higher with the EPE, and net income was $260,000 higher with the EPE. We determined that this was because we were able to improve workflow, allowing for more scans to be completed on schedule, and therefore more appointments could be made. By creating a positive patient experience, we were able to increase productivity by reducing patient anxiety, rescans, escape rates, and having fewer patients that need anesthesia and sedation. We also found that increased patient satisfaction led to more physician referrals, with patients traveling from up to 500 miles away. Most important, having happy patients led to happier, more relaxed MR technicians and staff, and ultimately leads to increased productivity and increased revenue for the hospital. Knowing this, the hospital is willing to spend more money on the enhanced patient experience. So it's important for us to get to them early in the design stages to present our solutions and come in with a more consultative approach. So now I'm going to hand it off to Jim Maslowski, president of PDC, to speak a bit more about the design challenges that we see in the MR space and the Amico PDC difference. Jim, off to you.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Maslowski, and I'm with PDC. We started working with MRI in 1982. We are engineers focused on MRI electronic products. We install MRI equipment, We design and manufacture MRI suite controls, electronics, video and lighting systems. We build relocatable imaging environments shown at the bottom left. Here you see one being installed with a crane at a recent hospital. We design and install radio frequency and magnetic shielding, and we regularly partner with MR vendors to create new electronic products for MRI. Shown in the bottom right is a new UVC light sanitization system we'll be introducing soon. So in summary, we know MRI inside and out. So let's review what healthcare MRI providers really need in today's market. This video shows what healthcare wants: patient satisfaction design that fosters workflow optimization. To achieve this, they need adequate lighting for procedures, unique designs that include RGB lights, image ceilings, and more. So let's explore the lighting challenge associated with designing a patient experience suite. Designers have to identify a variety of lights, so they may specify downlights from supplier A, task lights from supplier B, an image ceiling from supplier C, RGB accent cove lights from supplier D. Some of these suppliers may stipulate filters are to be provided by the shielding contractor and perhaps dimmers by the electrical contractor. A variety of suppliers increases the possibility of EMI interference and translates into a greater number of individual filters and power supplies. This creates problems with available space on the penetration panel, and we've got the solution. I'll show you one example in a few minutes, but first, let's look at what we know MR vendors really need. MR vendors require a scan room free of EMI interference in the imaging frequency range. They specify less than 5% ripple in the scan room, and they don't want any active electronics in the scan room, and we at PDC understand this. The spectrum analyzer graph on the left shows test results for PDC lights and linear power supply systems. We EMI test every product we design and make, and this graph demonstrates how PDC meets the spec. The graph to the right illustrates what MRI vendors don't want to see. This graph shows how general, commercial, off-the-shelf MRI lights perform in an EMI test chamber. They add a lot of EMI to the noise floor in the scan room that eventually translates into imaging artifacts. PDC lighting and control systems are specifically designed and tested to meet all of these MRI vendor specs. We guarantee there will be no interference in the scan room, and this is the Amico PDC difference. Let's take a look at the space constraints in a typical equipment room. What you see here is an MRI installation drawing. You can see the equipment room on the right-hand side of the drawing is crowded with MRI equipment. The penetration panel, shown in yellow, has limited space available. All electrical, lighting, and plumbing lines must enter into the scan room through the penetration panel, either through RF filters or waveguides. Additionally, all hospital equipment in the scan room requires RF filters and waveguides also, and they must all enter through the penetration panel, which generally causes some space issues. Let me show you a typical penetration panel in the field. This is a scan room penetration panel. On this project, the hospital needed 13 RF filters for hospital equipment they planned to put in the scan room and the normal power outlets. The blue arrow is pointing at all of these required filters. The MRI system cables for the MRI itself have to enter into the scan room through the space identified on the picture as MRI penetration panel area. Each MRI vendor has a different size and shape to their penetration panel. The area outlined in white is the remaining space left for lighting filters. A few minutes ago, I told you I would show you how PDC systems save space in the penetration panel. So let's take a look at the next slide and see the difference. I'm holding a PDC multi-channel power supply filter pack. It provides power for 16 PDC lights, provides 4-zone capability, includes all necessary RF filters in this compact size. It's rated Class 2, uses Cat5 cables and connectors. We can also provide it in Class 1 if you like. All of this in one small form factor. It's certified by many of the RF vendors, and the electrician can install it into the pen panel in less than 30 minutes. Alternatively, stacked up next to me is a competitor system that that will handle 14 lights in a scan room, 3 oversized RF filters, and 6 large drivers. It simply won't fit. More space has to be created when something like this shows up at the job site. The electricians tell us it takes 2 days to install these types of systems of pipe and wire, and the installed cost far exceeds the Amico PDC price for the multi-channel power supply filter pack. We design all PDC systems to minimize component size and meet every MRI requirement. So let's take a look at what happens when a lighting system like this shows up on the project site. What you see here on the left-hand side is an MRI penetration panel where the contractor tried to install the competitive system shown on the previous slide. You can see 2 of the RF filters used up all of the available space. The contractor needs to find space for 1 more RF filter and 6 power supplies. This creates headache number 1. The MRI vendor steps in and sees this and says, this interferes with the amount of space we need to install our system, which leads to redesign, change orders, and project delays. Let me show you a project we recently finished. This time-lapse video is a video of a recently completed PDC patient experienced installation. We provided the design support, RF and magnetic shielding, lighting, and patient experience suite with audio and video in the scan room, all controlled by a PDC touchpad user interface. We provide single source responsibility for all the lighting and patient experience products with a 100% guarantee of no EMI interference. We offer 5-year warranty packages and an extended warranty and service agreement. We can also provide any custom lighting your designer might design. We also keep our standard white LED lighting products available for quick ship in less than 2 weeks if you need something quickly. So in summary, this is the Amico PDC difference for MRI. Thanks for this opportunity, and let me turn it back to Scott.
JP, thank you for that quick demonstration. So hopefully you guys found the presentation relatively informative and beneficial, but now we'd like to open up the floor for some Q&A. So we have our panelists here today. We have JP or Jim, who you just met. We have Matt Basil, and we have Mike Slemon from PDC. So as Aaron had mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, if you have a question, just click on the little raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, move your mouse around, you'll see it. And then someone from our team will cue you in for any live questions. And we'll also be trying to answer some questions coming in from the chat group as well in between the live questions. So I'll leave it open now for whoever would like to shoot out the first question.
Well, first of all, thank you for really probably the coolest presentation that I've seen through COVID. You guys did a great job, amazing collaboration. And moreover than that, I really got a feel for what is different about this solution. And I don't want my question to be ignorant and or too simple, but I think it is important for us as the salespeople to really understand when we're selling to our clients and understanding the basic differences between what goes on in an MRI room and why it's important to have very specific fixtures there versus what's going on in the other areas of the hospital. We know non-ferrous, we know these other things, but can someone maybe in a succinct way say what needs to be in an MRI room as far as the lighting fixtures are concerned and why it's so important that the lighting fixtures are special and unique and engineered that way?
I guess I'll take that one, if you guys don't mind. Allison, you're right. There is a misnomer in the marketplace that an MRI fixture is a non-ferrous fixture with a remote driver. That's not even half of what an MRI fixture is. In addition to those 2 qualities, it has to be built in a manner that it can't be susceptible to what's going on inside the scan room. You've got an enormous magnetic field and you've got very high RF gradient pulses. So if you've got dimmer lines going in there, even if they're in a conduit, they will be affected. If you have anything on your light fixture that could possibly be susceptible, it will create white pixel noise on the image. And something that most manufacturers don't know, and we know because we participate with the manufacturers of MRI. When you run the RF test for 100 decibels of attenuation. That does not mean your lighting system passes the test just because it doesn't cause the RF test to fail. Each vendor has a special decibel level that they meet for their own equipment. They don't publish it. We know what they are. And as you could see on those spectrum analyzer graphs, we work really hard to manufacture our circuit boards that run these filters to keep our EMI well below the magic number the vendors have. When we test off the shelf MRI fixtures, you saw in the spectrum analyzer graph what was going on. So that probably wasn't as succinct as you wanted it to be, but there are very few products in the commercial marketplace that actually meet MRI vendor requirements. And that's why there are so many callbacks and so many issues when they try to get the MR suite commissioned and up and running. So if you have any follow-up questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I just love being able to follow up with my understanding. And so it sounds to me like there's two pieces that we as lighting agents maybe have missed in the past. And that's one, if the fixture is not as efficacious as it should be according to what an MRI fixture should be, the patient is going to have a poor result for their scan. And two, following that, if they have a poor result, they could be required to go back into the MRI machine, which goes back to the anxiety and all of the issues of being in that space. So doing it right the first time is less about the jewelry getting attached to an MRI machine, but more about the results the patient is receiving, the doctor is receiving, and potentially having to rerun a test that no one wants to have in the first place.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Allison.
Hi.
Blaine?
So in your presentation, you mentioned the lighting upgrade. I'm assuming that's from incandescent lighting upgrade to LED upgrade. Approximately how long does that take to do that upgrade?
Yeah, so typically it's probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's really quite simple to do. So it's a very, very short amount of time, a couple hours at most.
And then I'm also assuming that Amico PDC guarantees that will not have any type of artifact with that upgrade?
Correct.
My question is, I mean, this is a really dynamic launch for MRI solutions. Do you feel like this covers every type of lighting? I mean, between that and what Amico already offers, is this everything you would need to design an MRI, you know, the lighting for an MRI suite? Or are there products you're planning to add to this line? Or what are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a two-part answer. I'll go first on our end, and then I'll throw it over to PDC. What we see on many projects, I mean, you know, we work on, you know, thousands of projects a year, and the typical design that we see in the MRI space is essentially what we can pretty much offer, which is your downlight. And then you typically will have like a 2x2 flat white panel or an image ceiling panel, or maybe a 2x4. That's traditionally what I've seen on projects in my experience. And then if you want to get, you know, more creative, then you start adding the wall fixtures, the cove lighting, and that kind of stuff. So for the most part, I would say we have about 90, if not 100% of the offerings covered for what you can go to market with. The big advantage, though, again, is you know, the big boys and the big players out there, they don't have the audio-visual capabilities. They don't have a unique touchpad control system that can integrate everything. You know, they don't have the technology and expertise of having an RF shielding manufacturer behind them. So there really is a big advantage to the offerings of the Amico PDC versus anybody else out there. So hopefully that answers your question. And then I'll hand it off to PDC because they're the experts and they have a lot of years of experience in this space.
Yeah, hi, Tina. I would just add to what Scott said. Everything that you saw in the presentation today, we currently manufacture. It's currently in the field. It's all tested by the MR vendors before we take it to the field. And we provide everything from soup to nuts. All the RF filters, the drivers, the power supplies, the controls. It's a system. And if you remember that picture that I showed you, we designed them to be small and compact. So we control everything from the circuit board right up to the finished lighting product. And because we test them, For instance, we're located 15 minutes from GE headquarters. Our product is in all of their demonstration bays, and that gives us the opportunity to make sure the lighting gets to the right place. And it's really important that you get a proper amount of light on the patient table to support the procedures that the physicians and the MRI techs are going to be performing if they have to do an IV or introduce some amount of sedation. And one of the keys, and you see them all the time, designers love to put backlit image ceilings above the table. When they do that, you've got to compensate and be able to get light to the table because you don't get any usable light out of a backlit image ceiling. And the other thing I'll add about the backlit image ceilings, we have our own photography and video group within the company. We'll go out and take a photo if they want a custom photo, and we've got a huge gallery of really great images that customers can select to go onto the ceiling or the wall panels.
That's great. Like I said, it's a really dynamic group of offerings that you've put together. I think this is an amazing launch. Scott, you touched briefly on your controls. We know that you have the controls that can handle all of this. I would assume you're still doing the pre-wiring and schematics that make it plug and play for an installation contractor.
Tina, a little bit different. Thanks for asking that question. Because again, to our patient room solutions, we do offer that one-stop shop type of VE option. A little bit different when it comes to the MRI space. So the actual controls themselves are manufactured by PDC. So depending on the design, if they want to just use a basic 0 to 10 volt dimmer switch, then that wouldn't be pre-wired or installed. They'd just be installed on the site. For a unique, full enhanced patient experience, if you're using the custom cove lighting and accent lighting, that kind of stuff, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, PDC, but that control also needs to be installed in the field. You cannot pre-wire everything at the factory level. So it's a bit different in terms of the MRI world.
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, I think we have a question coming in from the chat.
Okay, question coming in from Shannon Burry. Great presentation. I'm looking on the website to see if you have any literature pertaining to the special features you're sharing about, but don't see anything.
Thank you, Shannon, for the question. We are actually nearly complete what I would say our cell brochure, if you want to call it that, or because we have our spec sheets and all that stuff that you see on the website. But we're trying to make a really cool, unique, dynamic, if you want to use that word again, cell sheet that you can present to your designers and architects that provides the general information on the products themselves. And then, we were trying to market it so that we use this enhanced patient experience and we push that theme because that's really what makes us different from everybody else. So we hope to have that done, I want to say within a matter of weeks, and we will definitely be distributing a lot of the material and literature and marketing content that we have around this specific product line out to you guys as soon as possible. I have another question from the chat, I believe.
Hi, quick question. What is the biggest differentiator between you guys and, competitors on the market like Kennel, for example?
Great question. I would say two-part answer again. First being that aside from the lighting solutions that your specifiers are going to want to see, again, it's I think the expertise and the experience behind the Amico and PDC brand, and being able to get involved early on a project to really walk through the architects or the designers on, hey, these are some of the common challenges that we see that happen once we get to the construction site. And secondly is that overall encompassing and enhanced patient experience. I don't see any of our competitors, as you just mentioned, Kennel. I don't believe Kennel has audio-visual capabilities. I don't think they offer custom image panels. I don't think they have cove lighting. And so I'm not trying to nitpick here, but there's this distinct advantage of working with a manufacturer such as Amico/PDC that makes us very different from the rest of the players out there.
And Michelle, I'd say a couple of big differentiators. You get an unequivocal 100% guarantee when a PDC product is used. Matters not what it is. There will be absolutely no EMI interference in the scan room. We have a large engineering team that can help electrical subcontractors figure out what they've done wrong if it doesn't work. Number two, our product is going to fit in the space available. And number three, we know all of the MR vendors very uniquely, and we deliver a product that we know is going to work best for their systems. Number four, you can get design support from us. We have almost 500 patient experience installations in North America already. We were the leader in developing this quite a long time ago. So we can bring you any amount of support that you need, but the most important thing is your customer will never have an installation EMI issue, and nobody else can give that guarantee.
Perfect. Okay, we've got a question coming in on the chat.
So Brian Appleton has asked, are we as lighting agents able to sell the filters and shielding equipment? And if so, will we be getting training? Also, Scott mentioned to me a few days ago the importance of adjustable downlights to avoid shadowing on the table. Please elaborate on that.
Sure. So the first part to address your question, Brian, on the shadowing of the table. So think of a different environment within that hospital. So think of the ED as an example, where examinations are happening nonstop, right? If the clinician or the physician or the nurse does not have proper lighting in that room and you're hanging over the patient doing whatever, all you're going to see is the shadow of your head and your hair. So imagine the same thing happening in the MRI space, where if you don't have the proper lighting or directional throw of light, all you're going to get is either one, just the basic downlights coming down, but you're not focused on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to insert a needle into a patient's arm, but it's super dim in there, well, you can't differentiate the colors of the veins and the skin, and you don't want any issues in there at all. So that's the importance of having directional downlight versus just having a general spotlight that just shines down and floods the room. To address your second question on, do you have the ability as lighting agents to sell the RF shielding in the panels, and will you receive training on that? I would say we want to focus more on delivering the lighting solutions within the MRI package of Amico PDC. However, being able to lead in with your clients and saying, hey, aside from the lighting, we can also offer the RF shielding and filters, and we have expert panelists or the specialists that I can bring in to help walk you through that process, provides that distinct advantage, again, that you would have. I'll throw it over to PDC if they want to more or less elaborate on that, JP and team.
Yeah, I think Scott, that you touched on it fairly well. We are working with Scott on formalizing this offering to Amico distributors, and I think if you give us about a week or two, we can have something in writing that will help explain how a distributor could recommend one of the other PDC products and how the compensation might work.
Yeah. So it's similar to like when, we have all the head walls and other lighting products, and you guys have an opportunity where you think you might be able to push and promote the head walls. Although you guys don't sell the head walls, you do know that we have a division that does so. So similar to that effect, where you'll say, hey, Scott, we've got an opportunity here. I've got the architects here. They're interested in your head walls. Can we set up a meeting? And similar to how we've kind of set that up, we'll probably be doing the same thing more or less for the PDC relationship. So Brian, hopefully I answered that for you. Okay, and we've got a chat question coming in.
So this is still from Brian Appleton. For customers, or for custom, does the specifier send you a drawing on a napkin and you figure out the parts and pieces for them?
Not as simple as that, but in theory, yes. So, if they're in a very pre-designed conceptual stage, and Brian, you and I get to go out and visit you in the nice West Coast, and we go out with your architect buddy at a restaurant, and they draw something out on a napkin. I can take that, bring it back home, work with PDC, and say, here's the idea and concept that they have. Let's provide some options and ideas to present to them, right? Then we'll take that, give it back to you, and you can present, here are some options based on what you're thinking, on what you can do. Here are the capabilities that we have, and here are some limitations that you might have, and then go from there. And then once they kind of have an idea of our capabilities, then the designer might say, okay, let's draw this out. Let's actually get the dimensions of the room. And then we'll receive that information back and provide more precise dimensions and drawings on the custom work that they need. So again, nothing's ever off the table. It's just bring it to us and we'll tell you yes or no, we can do it. We won't fluff it and make things up. And I think that's a great part of working with Amico and PDC.
I could add one thing, Brian. We do have an architectural design division here. We work in AutoCAD and Revit. And the way that process normally works is if an electrical designer or an architectural designer has an idea and wants to do something unique in the scan room, they get in touch with us, send us background drawings, explain what they want. We'll come up with a design and send it back to the architect or the design engineer. And we regularly do that. And on a couple of the photos that Scott showed, you saw shaped image ceilings with video implanted in the middle and with directional lights. These are all ideas that an engineering designer or an architect or a customer might have. They bring them to us. We'll tell them whether or not it can be done in the MRI environment without creating any issues. And if it can, we'll build it.
Yeah. And what I love about this partnership between Amico and PDC, and I think I touched upon it earlier, is there's no 12 layers of red tape to get things done around here, right? You have JP over there and you have myself, and we don't have shareholders and board members and people to get through to get things approved. Things happen really fast and we're very fluid in that manner. So that presents, again, designers love that, right? When they want an answer on, can you do this? Is not, well, let me talk to my shareholders and board members to see if it's something that we want to consider. It's a one level question to my manager or to JP, and then it's an answer right back to you. So I would hope that people out there in the design community would appreciate that level of transparency and availability to engineers and designers. All right. I've got a chat question coming in here.
So Brian Ekstrom wants to know, what is the timeline for availability on these great new products?
Right now. You can order them today if you want. I'll take an order from you. I don't mind. But no, the products are all been manufactured. PDC has been doing this for 50 odd years. We've just recently partnered with PDC to provide an MRI solution to the Amico family. So if you have an immediate need of projects, by all means, please feel free to share the opportunity and then we can get things quoted for you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and if anybody's wondering, your first point of contact should be your Amico rep or Scott. Get your needs or wants or desires to these guys. They'll get them to us and we'll respond quickly.
Perfect. Another chat question coming in.
Yes, so this one's from Iman. Do you find that architects are making these decisions about specs, or do you find that the end user, clients and facility folk are more involved with these spec decisions?
Okay. A two-part answer here again. I'm going to share my experience on the patient room side and then turn it over to JP. So I find a lot of times on projects I work on that the lack of education is one of the reasons why projects don't get designed to modern standards. And what I mean by that is I've seen many projects where they're using old technology. And by the time I see it, I reach out to the owner, I reach out to the architect or designer. I said, hey, why did you do it this way? And they'll say, well, what else way would you do it? And when we present the options available, they'll say, wow, I didn't know that you could actually do that. So one factor to answer your question is it's a lack of education. The spec really is driven by, for the most part, the owner more or less drives the spec. But at the same time, an owner might rely on their design team to say, here's the budget we've got, here's what we have in mind, show me an idea of what you're thinking you want to do. And then the owner and the design team will collaborate going back and forth. But again, it becomes a lack of education on the designer's part of not knowing what's available to present to an owner themselves on what they're thinking they might want to do. So I'll throw this over to PDC on their experience of how things get decided in this specific area.
Yeah, Scott's right. It's a mixed bag. There are many health systems that are developing standards for what they're going to do in their MRI space. A few of them have created a standard design that they use in every new MR that is being installed. Others rely upon their architect and their electrical designer to bring patient experience ideas to them. So you might run into one customer that says, I know exactly what I'm doing. We've adopted the standard and here's what we do. And then you'll run into others that aren't quite sure. They're a little behind the curve and they're looking for their architect and engineer to come in and tell them, hey, this is what's been going on in the industry. So it's still 50-50, but research indicates that between 38 and 42% of new MRI purchases are going to include some element of patient experience. And the driving force is it improves workflow and it generates more profit for the system, makes the patients happier. And that's what it's all about in the MR industry today.
Perfect. Thank you, JP. Another question from the chat?
Yes, so Vasily would like to know, I'd like to know whether Amico PDC has any formal ratification from the MR manufacturers that we can cite when speaking to our customers. For example, ratified as preferred lighting partners for their MR equipment.
I can answer that one for you, Scott. Our products are formally certified by GE, Canon, and Hitachi, where they've actually tested them all on their scanners and have certified that all of our products meet their requirements. Siemens and Philips do not offer that certification program, but we work closely with both of them, and all of our products have been installed in both Siemens and Philips installs, and we offer the same guarantee. We know their requirements, we meet all their requirements. So yeah, 3 of the vendors have a formal certification.
Perfect. I'll say one thing as we wait for another question to come in. And some of you may be thinking it is, will there be a conflict between how you as a lighting agent goes to market, and will you ever run into an MR vendor that also can provide, full package? And the answer is no. As JP had mentioned during his presentation and his portion is that they work closely with GE, Philips, and some of all these other MR manufacturers. How they go to market is completely different how we go to market. We're focused on working with the architects and designers to get things specified. Those MR vendors are focused on going directly to the MR radiologist or the construction team that we don't play in that world. So there should never be a conflict of the Amico MRI PDC product between us or yourselves and, let's say, Philips. That should not happen. If it does, then let me know, but I'm pretty sure it won't happen.
Yeah, and the other side, Scott is absolutely correct. You may run into situations where the MR vendor has already sold one of our solutions and included it with the system. But the reason why you won't run into any conflict is because then that won't go out to bid. So when you're bidding on a project, you're not going to run into any conflict, but you may see healthcare institutions and projects where one of these products automatically is put into the project and it wasn't a bid. So I think that's the differentiation.
Yeah. I think we've got a question from Blaine.
Has this product been vetted by the VA system and the government system in the U.S.?
Great question.
Yeah, it has. There are a number of VA systems that are looking at using it as a standard. And we've got, I would say we have probably in excess of 75 VA installations or government right now, not limited to the VA.
Thank you, Blaine, for the question. Okay. It's about an hour now, so I don't want to take up again too much more of everyone's time. I really appreciate everybody making the time for this webinar. We'll be sending out the Q&A session as well to you guys, so you have it, and a more condensed version of this presentation that you can share with your specifiers. This presentation specifically was geared towards presenting to yourselves as an agency and kind of going over some answers and questions you might have, but we'll design it more specifically more for the specifiers, architects, and designers. And then your designated Amico sales rep will be probably contacting each and one of your offices to see if we can schedule and strategically present this solution to people who we think would find it very interesting. So if you have any questions, please send them to sales@amico.com, or sorry, alt-sales@amico.com. or most of you have my info as well. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Please stay safe out there. Be healthy, be well, and we'll see you guys, I hope very, very soon. Have a great weekend and see ya.